Hey everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. It's Wednesday, December 6th, and we're going to be playing around with some procedural embroidery tonight. At least that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes. I'm looking to recreate a setup that I did a long time ago now, at least it feels like a long time ago, and should be pretty interesting. So, oh yeah, hey, hi Aspie, welcome to the stream. Yeah, glad you were able to make it to a live broadcast. Guessing it might be a little late where you are, but yeah, really glad that you're able to make the time work. And yeah, maybe sometime in the future we'll have another special broadcast time or something like that, and it'll maybe be in a little bit more of an advantageous time for you. All those time zones are a bit tricky. Interesting. It's pretty that live broadcasts do not have subtitles. Yeah, that is definitely tricky. I know how that would work, but unfortunately, I don't have the money to do something like that. So, hey, Matul, welcome to the stream. Nice to have you. So anyways, like I said, tonight we're going to be looking at some procedural embroidery, and I did this setup. It was probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, and hopefully I've learned a little bit since then, and we can do something maybe that'll be even a little bit more robust than what I set up at that point. Shouldn't be overly complicated. Yeah, KG, you're definitely right. There's transcription on recorded videos for YouTube. Not sure if that translates or does anything like that, but yeah, you're definitely right. Hey KG, by the way, welcome to the stream. So anyways, the thing that I was working on this for was for a New Era hat commercial. Like I said, it was a while ago, and at my old studio that I used to work at. And let me see if I'll pull it up here for us, and we can at least take a look at a little bit of what I did. And let's see here. Mio Parkera. See if I can't find this video. It should be in my reel here. All right, cool. I'm going to mute this so that it's not going to be making any crazy amount of noise. All right. Cool. Let me switch this over. So, there's my fade. So the scene here that I had made was with this knit hat, and it kind of, oops, sorry, this is my reel from whatever, boo. But so this I made a while ago, and it certainly is not the best rendered thing. I actually just did all the geometry. I didn't do any of the rendering or anything like that. We brought it all over to Cinema, and I wish I didn't have to do that. There's a lot of stuff I would like to do differently on this. But anyways, so basically what we had to do was a bunch of different team logos and things like that, and do them with embroidery and with knit, and we're going to be really up close to them. So really felt like it was going to be better if it was something done with actual geometry versus textures and things like that. So we'll look at how we could do this that way. We'll kind of play around with maybe some of the the settings and things like that. Maybe we'll even get into like some rendering and things like that. But we'll make like sort of, I'm not really going to say we're going to make like an HDA or anything like that. But we'll play around with it and kind of make a little system that obviously you could wrap up into an HDA if you wanted to. We'll just kind of see where it goes. We actually had these hats in person, so we would sit there with them and try to figure out like, oh, what's the threads like on this, and how are the patterns going and stuff like that. It certainly wasn't the most robust system, and there's definitely errors in here and some weirdness, but it's worth, I think, talking about and looking at and kind of figuring out. Like some of these other ones definitely have some errors in them. Like this one has some weirdness on it, but they kind of go by quickly, so you don't always see all of the details. The Eagles one's pretty cool. Yeah, it was kind of this combination of trying to figure out how to get as much, thread, count in there as possible without absolutely destroying cinema, because that was where we were doing all of the final stuff, which was not and still is not my favorite way of doing that. But hey, it was what we had to do at the time, so there we go. Everybody else wasn't on Houdini or anything like that. So looking at a lot of this stuff now, I would love to take a shot at this again, but we'll kind of play around. I mean, obviously I'm not going to do this whole eagle head type thing like that. Thanks. I'm glad you think they look good. It's a little bit it's one of those things where it's like, all the issues with them, but it was fun. It was fun to do. So I think what we're going to do is, we're not going to, I'm not going to try to do anything super overly detailed like that. Probably this would be the best thing to look at. So maybe something like, recreating how one of these horns might work and kind of playing around with it from there. So I think that's what we're going to be doing. That's really funny. It says 13 years ago. I've updated my reel a few times, and change the name of it. So I guess I've had this same link for my reel for 13 years. I'm just looking at that. Math there doesn't quite make sense, but cool. Anyways, there we go. I'll bring that back up probably from time to time for a little reference, shall we say. But that's the plan. And let's save out our file here. I guess we should just dive in and get started. I'm actually realizing that I didn't save out. Oh, no, we were just going through. I was like, I didn't upload anything from my last stream for the HIP files, but that's because I was going through files that already existed. So it didn't need to happen. So 12. Gosh, we're getting to the end here. There we go. And then we'll say, cool. All right. So let's play around. Let's see what we got going on here. So the first thing we should do is we should set up, where our geometry is going to come from. And really the way that I kind of went about doing this was kind of giving two like backbone curves to the embroidery, because if you look at it here, there's kind of these two roots where these curves are coming from, right? So this is one, and then this is sort of the other. And that was the idea that I went with for this whole setup, because there would be a lot of different places where you had to change the direction of them. You had to kind of, like, even in this star here, you had to sort of create these pinch points. And this was actually I want to say this was pretty close to how the actual thing was, where these stars went in like this. And we wanted to try to keep it as realistic as possible. So I think what we did there basically was you know, we kind of sectioned this off into like each of these little like modules, you could say, are their own little setup. And so we would use backbone curves and things like that. Now, obviously, you could get quite a bit fancier with this. We had all of the, because we were working with New Era, we had all of the actual like real logos for the teams and stuff like that from, you know, the NFL and all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty fun to play around with their logo files and all that stuff. Not that you can't find those things online, but just to know that they were like officially sourced or whatever was kind of cool to play around with. No. We only rendered it in Cinema. All the threads were made in Houdini here. And the hat as well. That's all threaded. So that was made in Houdini as well. There's certainly much better ways of going about doing that these days, with better, you know, procedural setups and things like that people have come out with. And if you're ever wondering how you do like this right here, where we've got these stitches flipping like this, that's literally the two different types, the two basic types of stitches. This one here is a knit stitch, and then this is I think I'm saying this right. So this is a knit and this is a purl. So it's 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl, and then just go back and forth. And it's basically what it's doing is it's taking the loop and it's flipping it back and forth as it goes along there. So that was how we got that ribbing. So if you're ever interested how to do that, that's how you do it. And there's a whole bunch of stuff online that you could certainly find to play around with. But we're not talking about knitting tonight because that gets, you know, that's been done a few times. But we're gonna let's start playing around with this. So why don't we start by just making this horn here, and we can kind of play around with this. We'll make these two. We're gonna make a couple curves here, and then we're gonna start connecting points and playing around with how that might work. So hopefully this will look very similar to what we have going on there, but we'll see. We'll see where we go. Like I said, it's been quite a few years, and I don't have my original files from that. So I mean, I might somewhere, but gosh, good luck to me ever digging those up. That was actually, I was thinking I was going to do that. Hey, Zach, how's it going, man? Welcome. I was actually thinking I was going to dig up the files at some point because this had been requested like earlier this year, and I never got to it. Anyways, all right, let's actually do some Houdini stuff. So we'll start with some curves. Let's just do geometry here. We'll do a geometry node. Just trying to think if it'll make sense to separate out these curves at all. I don't think so. I think if it was getting a bit more complicated, I would set them, put them in different, different object nodes. But we'll just do this. We'll just say geo embroidery effect like so, and we'll dive into that. Let's bring up some curves, and I'm just going to make this like relatively large. I'm not going to like make this actual scale to what the embroidery effect itself was. I don't think that really is going to help us at all. And in fact, it could just cause some weird little issues and things like that. So actually, you know what? I'm going to do a... Can you try to make them using a construction plane? Maybe. I never use the construction plane. Let's see here. This is Bezier curve. So yeah, I guess I could do it. Like that. Let's see if this works. I'm not sure. So if I do, just going to make a few curves here. So we'll make sort of the one thing like this, and then we'll make another one that sort of does this. All right, so we're just going to make like a little horn here or something. Oops. Let's just do... And my curve skills are, hey, there we go. That worked. My curve skills are incredible. Look at these skills. Yeah, something like that should do the trick. Just make sure these are relatively close. I don't want them to actually touch, I don't think. Is it? Jeez. Liam, you scared the crap out of me. I was like, wait a second. Is this the wrong version of Houdini? No, it's not Houdini 21. It is Houdini 20, but not 21. Man, you scared me. I was like, did I install something improperly here? I was like, anyways, sorry. Also, my phone is exploding on me right now, so give me 1 second. I forgot to mute everything. I'm so unprofessional right now. My apologies. There we go. Hello, Carlos. Hey, Liam. Hello, everybody that's here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so we've got our horns here, and that construction plane thing worked. Cool. I don't really use that often, so yeah. Yeah, Matul, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that. So Matul's asking if I used a No, it's great. I'm happy to answer questions. I don't show a lot of the production stuff I've done in the past, mostly because I haven't like worked on anything like major or that cool. Like you can find my reel, it's out there. It's not like the most impressive thing in the world. I haven't worked on like Star Wars or anything like that. But anyways, yeah, so we had the AIs for the curves. Now the question is, I don't think that we had like that we were able to get like good enough results with using the actual curves. I'm not sure, honestly, you'd be surprised, I think, a lot of times how bad some of the file builds are on these, like on some of these AI things. I used to work, like I said, in the advertising agency, so we'd work with ad agencies a ton. Thanks, Matul. It was crazy how often you'd run into files that were just horribly made, absolutely horribly made. And some of those logos have so much detail in them, it's like obscene. So like that Eagles logo is way too detailed, but then like the Texans logo is pretty fun. Like the one that we're looking at there, you probably don't know, sorry, which ones are which, but like this is the Texans logo, Houston Texans. These are football teams, US football teams. But like, if you look at the Eagles, like, holy cow, it was just craziness. And so depending on these different things, it was kind of hard to like just create a system that would take these and be able to break them up. So I'm pretty sure I redrew the paths based on the vectors. Like I brought them in and then either isolated the curves that I wanted to and just kept those, or I redrew them. I can't honestly remember. But there definitely was some manual. Oh, cool. That's an interesting idea. You used the Labs Trace node. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That makes sense. Anyways. Yeah, no, I don't mind the questions. Keep them rolling. Sorry, I'm a little like, I'm like sort of talking and trying to talk and think here. Just seeing if we can output IDs or anything like that, but shouldn't matter. I was just looking to see if, nope, that should be fine. Okay. All right. So we have our curves here, and what we could do is something like, we could do a resample. Sorry. And we'll get, obviously points from these curves, and we can kind of play around with this however we might be interested in. So the one thing the way that I find it easiest, or have found it easiest to kind of work with these things is, you want to create an equal number of points on this outside curve versus the inside curve. And we're going to see if I can do the dark. Yeah, that should be better. We're going to be doing a lot of points and things like that. So let me see here if I can make these a little easier to see. Cool. So you want to have the same number of curves, points on the outside and the inside. So I think what I did instead of doing a resample was a scatter, I want to say is what I did. And that would scatter it onto the curves. Now, the tricky thing here is that we're obviously just scattering, across these two curves, sort of just totally randomly here in this case. So what we should probably do is do this in some sort of a, basically do this based on each individual curve here, right? So we have two curves. We want to scatter each of these, equally. So let's do this count per primitive, and we should be able to do it that way. So let's try that. All right, so let's do this. Let's make an attribute here that'll drive that because it's looking for it. We're looking for count. This should be an primitive integer. Let's do like 200 just for sake. Okay, cool. So that looks like that is working. So now we should have 200 per, or sorry, yes, 200 per, and that gets us a total of 400 points. So if you look down here, we have 400 points, and that's working just fine. So that's obviously one way we could go about doing it. So so the thing here is we need to kind of get a, build up some IDs here that'll allow us to link these together, right? Because we don't want to, we don't want to have too many, that are just randomly jumping all over the place, because we want them to be sort of localized, right? But we also want to, give them, their, make sure that we can randomize it a little bit. So we need to get these points along these curves and have them link up to the closest one on the other side. So what we'll do is we'll create ID attributes along these curves. And probably the best way to go about doing that would be, using like the curve U attribute to create those IDs and to create those to create those attributes that we'll be able to link across. Sorry, I'm thinking and I'm trying to talk and my brain is just acting up today. Anyways, all right, cool. So let's start to connect some of these things. And what we could do here is we could obviously scale these out a little bit just to kind of smooth these points a bit. So you can see we can kind of smooth out how much these are going to relax as well. So we can kind of get a bit more, of a random distribution here. The other thing that I'm just thinking of is if we did, I'm just kind of thinking through different ways of doing this. So if we used a resample on this, would this do the same thing for me? Segments. Yeah, this technically would. So I guess I don't have to use that scatter. So I guess there's a couple different ways you could go about doing this, right? So the interesting thing about the scatter is it's going to give you a little bit of variation built in, whereas the resample is going to be a bit more clean, and you're going to have to kind of add some noise into that to kind of help move that around, which we can certainly do and play around with. We actually need this resample anyways, because we're going to get the curve view attribute out of this. So if we look at this and I'm just going to grab the ID here, curve view, and let's turn that on, turn off these other visualizers. Cool. So we have our curve view attributes here, and it's being displayed by color. Let's actually go in and edit this, and we're going to say, not color, but we want marker, and we can do text for that. And we can see here that at this end is going to be 1, and then it's going to go down. We can hopefully sort of see those. Make them a little bigger. So they're going to go down from 1 up here and kind of go down to 0 on the other side. So in this case, we're dealing with, we've got kind of this 0 to 1 space that we can work within. And there, we could use that to kind of remap our ID attribute, right? We could use that, or we could make sure that the ID is sorted based on that, right? So let's see here. Just thinking. These actually look like they're sorted right now, which is because I drew them the same way. So that's good. Let's just see what happens here if we do a for each on each of these, and then let's see, enumerate. Oops. Just going to enumerate these real quick with the point attributes and do index on them. So we've got our index attributes, and we're going to use the, let's see here. Yeah, that should be good. So what we need to do, we could just do a simple for each primitive, and maybe there's a simpler way to do this, but just do that real quick. That'll get us, oops, hey, stop it. That will get us the IDs for each of these. We should have a matching ID for each of them now. So here we have a resample, and if we look at our ID attribute now, or our index attribute, let's take a look at that. I'm going to turn these off. We can turn this on, and let's turn that off. Sorry, I'm just going through here, and attribute as is, marker. There we go. And we'll make this one large as well. So we should see that these are now matching up with each other. So let me make that a little bit better to be able to see that. Maybe. Yeah, maybe yellow's good. Okay. So we have these IDs matching now. So what we could do here is we could obviously take those attributes, and we could do something like an add sop here. We'll link that together, and we're going to add some polygons in here, and we can do this based on points, and I'll say by attribute, and the attribute's going to be index. So now we're going to start to get this this connection between those individual sides there. So that is starting to do kind of what we're wanting it to do. Now, the other thing I guess we should think about here is getting rid of these curves, right? Because you don't want these curves to be rendered within this either. So there is a quick setup for that. If you type extract and say extract all points, this is going to do an add node just with the delete geometry, but keep the points. So that'll do that part of it. And then there we go. Now we have actual curves that are getting written in here. So we have our add, 2 adds in a row actually. And let me see, does this work actually now that I'm thinking of it? I don't know if that will work. Yep, it does. Okay, we don't need both of them. Sorry, my bad. I wasn't thinking that this would operate simultaneously. So that does work together. So this is both deleting the original geometry and connecting the new ones. So it's looking at the ID attribute, it's connecting them based on that, and kind of working down this path here to get each of these curves to have their own matching ID numbers. So that is kind of number one, what's, allows us to be able to do that. Now, I think if we do point jitter here, no, that won't do it. Okay. So if we wanted to take something like this, I'm just trying to think of some processes that we can use and wanted to noise this up. That'll be kind of an important part of this. So why don't we take this resample here and we'll start to look at this a little bit here. And what we could do is actually noise them up based on the normal direction along the curve. So if we do a, let's see, what is it? Orientation along curve. And if we take this and look at the normals here, so there's our normals, we can, we don't need the up attribute, we can just do normal. And now we'll have these normal values that we can work with. And the reason I'm thinking that that could be really helpful is because once we get here, once we have these points that we're going to be moving around, what we might want to do is jitter them back and forth, right? So what we can do is we can do a attribute noise vector. And what we can do then is instead of doing V, we can do it on P. And we can say noise along vector along the normal vector. So obviously the amplitude is going to be much too high here. So let's bring that way down. We'll keep that 0 centered. We'll add this noise in. So maybe we'll do 0.0 or maybe 1.1 or something. Let's take a look at this one. And let's bring the element size way, way, way down so we can really see some crazy stuff going on here. All right, cool. So these are obviously moving way too far. So let's bring this down even a little bit more. And you can see that this is going to start to move these points around a bit. We're going to have to kind of scale that based on a bunch of different factors. But if we bring these noise values, right. So the other thing you could do on top of this is you could also do an attribute adjust vector. And instead of having it be noise that you're using for it, you could, and I don't think that's here, right? We don't have true random. We could take something like this, do P, and yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm thinking of this all on the fly. So this would work, except we don't have the access to that that noise along vector. So maybe that won't be the best way of doing that, but I'm just thinking of ways to kind of get true randomness in here. But I guess we can make this super, super tiny, and that'll be just about as close to actual random as we can, or pseudo random, whatever you want to say. The other thing that might help as well is if we knew how far the distance was to each of the next points. So that could be helpful as well. So I'm not sure if this would work. Yeah, I think that could work where the point distances would tell us. So that you could use almost as like a multiplier between them, so that depending on how, some of them are going to have shorter distances versus the other ones, like these ones, you'd want to also almost multiply further than these ones. So that could be something we could play around with in a second to kind of get this in a better place. So let's stick with this attribute noise vector. And that should be good. Let's take the add here. And I think as we kind of play around with this, you'll see what's going on here. We're kind of tweaking some of these things, allowing them to move around a little bit. The only, I guess another thing we might want to think about is that these ends of these, you wouldn't want to go past. So those we might want to pin in place. So we could do that as well. We could make a group. Let's see here. Let's make a group. And I think, uncheck this, say points. Sorry, just thinking about how we can do that. Right. So what I'll do is, actually, that's right. Group by range does that. So let's do group by range. And we can do this here relative to the start and the end. So we'll say 1 and 1, and we'll do this on points. And we'll say disconnected geometry separately. And we'll invert the range, and there we go. We've got our start and end. So we'll call these pins. And then here, we'll make sure that those are pinned. So we'll just say, not pins. That should work, I think. Let's see. Yep, those will stay in place. Cool. Nice. So we're starting to get some interesting results here. Let's just add a little bit of noise, and we won't do anything too crazy right now. But there we go. We got a little bit of noise, so that's starting to do its thing. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So we're obviously going to want to do a few more things here as well. So we're going to want to, let me just name what I'm doing here a little bit. So we'll say create end groups, noise along N. This is going to be connect matching index. Resample's pretty simple. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, great. So this is all working here. Interesting. I haven't heard anybody talking in chat, just making sure everything's still working here. Anyways, so, oh, another thing I didn't say tonight is that if you have any ideas at all, or have thoughts or questions or anything like that, please always feel free to put them in chat. This isn't just me showing like this is the best way of doing this. As you can see, I'm kind of figuring this out on the fly, trying to calculate all these things in my brain as I'm talking. So, you know, if you guys have any thoughts, any ideas, any questions about why I'm doing something a certain way, please put them in the chat. I'd be happy to try to explain my best as to why I'm doing something, and maybe you'll have a better way of doing something. That happens quite often on the stream. So always helpful for me and helpful to others. If you're running into something you're not understanding, oftentimes that can not only help you, but help other people that might be watching this now or down the road. So yeah, anyways, I just wanted to reiterate that as always. Okay, cool. So, we have this working right now. So that's starting to look good. So what we need to do is a few other things. We need to kind of allow this to be able to kind of bulge out, which is important to kind of create that look of how the embroidery would kind of sit up. So that's an important thing here to mention. So let's do that. Let's do another resample. And for this resample, I'm going to say, say resample roots here. Root curves. All right, cool. So we obviously need a few more points than this. That's a little bit crazy. So let's just do this for right now. Oh no, we need more than that. So let's do something like that. All right, so we're getting a lot of points here now. Not a lot, but we're getting more points. We can obviously go down a bit more. I'm actually surprised at how small these numbers are getting to. I didn't make it that small. I mean, geez. Anyways, cool. All right, so we've got our construction plane there. All right, so we've got a lot of points here that we can work with. So what we want to do again is get the curve view of these individual resampled polygons. And this will now output a 0 to 1 range along each and every one of these curves. So that'll be really important to us because we're going to want to have these threads kind of bulge up based on how far along these curves they are. So let's try that here. So maybe what we'll do is all right, let's do a couple of things here. So we'll just assume that we're creating this in this plane here where we're kind of making it flat against something and it's going to bulge out in the z-axis towards us, right? So that'll be kind of our assumption here. So let's do a point fop. I think this will maybe be a little easier for you to visualize as we kind of work with these. Maybe not, but this is my hope that we'll be able to kind of see what's going on here and maybe talk a little bit better about this. So this will be, we'll call this displace, or maybe we'll say round. No, we'll say displace, sorry. All right, so this will displace the threads in Z. So let's first of all make a directional constant here. So let's say constant. We're going to make a vector. And we're going to put this in the Z axis. So this will be going in the positive Z. So this will be, we'll call this, I don't know, up or whatever. Cool. So I'm going to do this kind of similar to how I would do the, if I was doing this in Vex. So that's good. We've got our vector. And so what we can do is we can do a displace along normal. We'll take our P, we'll take our N here, and this will be our displaced P. And so what we can do now is as we displace this, it's going to go up and down, right? So that's good. That's going to be really helpful to be able to kind of adjust this, but obviously everything is moving together. So we need to be able to use our curve view attribute in order to pick up on the distance that we are along those threads so that we can kind of move them out in some reasonable way. So let's bind in our curve view. So now we have our curve view attribute here. I'm going to place this down like that. There's our curve view attribute coming in. Let's say amount there. And there we go. We've got our curve view. It pushes out along the curve view. So we can see that the curves are starting. So maybe a little hard to see. The curves are starting along these inside kind of root curves and are moving this way positively. So as they get over here, they have a value of 1 in our curve view. And so therefore, that's getting affected by the scale and the ones down here are not. So those are still on our, on our grid, on our construction plane. But what we want to do is we want to use a ramp in order to adjust this a little bit. So let's do a ramp parameter. We're going to wire this in between here. And what this is going to allow us to do, well, first of all, let's set this to be, Let's do Bezier by default. We'll say this is going to be a spline ramp, and that should be good. Okay, so then we'll ramp into the amount, and then that should be good. So, all right, so we've got this ramp set up now, and this is going to make a parameter up on this top level. So if we take this and make some curves here, we'll see that this is now moving based on the 0 to 1 value range of our curve view attribute. So right in this ramp parameter here, this side is curve view of 0. This side is curve view of 1 because that is what we are yeah, the distance along geometry could work. That's a great question. But the tricky part there would be you'd have to normalize those values. Yeah, I think that would be kind of tricky to do, but it's an interesting thought for sure. And we are going to run into some weirdness here where like these are going to get sort of pinched, but it should work out. We're not going to go too crazy with these, and they should more or less work. So let's go back over here and let's see. We're going to select these guys all. Wait a second. Did that not select? Bezier. All right, so let's just do linear first. I'm gonna switch these both to Bezier. Don't know why that was acting the way it was, but that's okay. All right, so now we'll be in a little bit of a better spot to do this. Whoa, hello. All right, there we go. So now we've got these Bezier handles that we can sort of use to make some interesting shapes here. Yeah, I think there is a little bit of bugginess with this new ramp parameter stuff that has happened. But anyways, so what we could do here as well is we could figure out the overall length of these and then displace them more or less depending on that. There's lots of options here, but we're starting to get somewhere where we're getting to a kind of a nice looking effect, right? And if we took this and maybe went a bit further with this, like something like that, we can see that we're now actually getting more of this effect kind of going. Now down here, still sort of running into some issues, but that's okay. And there's a few things we could kind of figure out here. One of the issues is that if we look at this before, we're really only adding a few points in here, right? So that's part of it. So we could maybe make this a little smaller, right? And then it's going to displace better. However, there's a couple things that might make more sense. We might want to ramp these down depending on, how close they are, how short they are, right? So we could do another, thing there where we actually pull these down based on where they are, how long these actual curves are, because we're really stretching these out quite a bit. And that's not super realistic, I feel like. I feel like these should kind of be starting to ramp down and not just this like vertical spike here. I feel like this should like come down on some level. We should also have something that allows us to give it an overall scale for this whole thing. So let's do that. Let's promote this parameter here, and we can just say, let's call this thread depth, and we'll say thread x extrusion depth. Maybe that's a good name. Yep. So then this will control how far it goes, and it could obviously go either direction. So there is that. The other thing that we could do as well is we could, just do something honestly just like this, where we have the curves kind of go along like that. That's probably pretty reasonable to say is how it would actually work. Something to that effect. Cool, it's looking decent. So let's maybe bring this down a little bit more. Maybe it's something in there like that, where we get some depth to it. And again, we can go in here and up this a bit more and just kind of start to see some actual little results go on here. And I think we're starting to get sort of a nice effect. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a good view of where this is showing up. I think we're starting to get kind of an interesting look here. And the more that we resample this, the higher our thread count is going to go here, right? So there we go, 2,400 maybe, something like that. So I think really the thing here is that I don't think we need to go quite so harsh here with these individual points. I don't think that's going to really give us too much, bang for our buck. And if we have these not extrude out so far. Oh, interesting. What's going on there? Hello? Oh, I see. I was just selected on it. Yeah, I think we can definitely work with this a little bit. All right, so let's do that. Let's figure out, let's go back to these. We'll go back to maybe 1,500s, a little more reasonable, or maybe 1,000. And let's see if we can't calculate the distance of these and then figure out where these how far these might scale down. Because these here, I think we're pretty good with. I don't think we need to worry too much about these, but because these ones will butt up against other ones when you have embroidery. So here, as you see, these are going to always kind of butt up against other ones when they're really wide like that. However, when they're narrow is where, when it narrows down like this, is where you'll actually see that you need to kind of taper it off on some level. So let's play around with that. We can kind of add some more into it. All right, so we have the distance there. I think what we could do is, I think we could use a measure. I feel like that'll do it. And I think if we use this measure here, and if we do perimeter length, accumulate per piece, per element, let's say per element. Yeah. And just thinking if there's any way to do this better, but that's fine. Okay, so let's also use this labs. I like this node, min, max, average. I always like this because this does some nice little quick stuff for us. So we could say min, do the minimum, and let's call this, that's called perimeter right now. We'll call this length, and we'll do this over length. And that should create detail attributes for us that we can then use. So that should be good. We can do min length, max length. That should be really nice to be able to pull those up. And this will do min, max, length. Say get length of prims. Cool. All right, so let's go back into here. We'll grab those detail attributes and we can use those to define how the scale works. So let's just pull this down like this and import detail attribute. This is going to be a float. It's going to be first input, and we'll say min length. And then the next one should be, you know what, let me just make sure that this is coming in. I'm just going to put a visualizer down, and I think that'll give us the attribute for that. Let me make sure. Yep. 0.05. Yep, perfect. All right, so there's our min length right here. And then it's coming out on our visualize over here on each of the points. Sorry, just making sure I'm not covering that up with my head. So that's looking good. We'll get rid of this visualizer. So we have min length, max length. Cool. And let's do a, let's do a, prim attribute. We'll just grab the prim number here. And that'll just be the current prim. So this is going to give us the current prim number based on which point we're looking at. So we have the prim number there, and we can say from this will be a float. It will be from the first input, and the attribute will be length. So these actually should probably come down here. They should go up. And we can do a fit range. And the value is going to be length. The source minimum is going to be there. Source maximum is going to be there. It's going to output 0 to 1. And then let's double click that. That'll turn this into a parameter proper. And let's multiply these together. So we'll take this, multiply by this, output the scale there, and now we should have these coming down at the end here. Sure enough. So they're starting to ramp down, right? Might not be super obvious, so let's make this really exaggerated just so we can see it a bit better. There we go. So now it's super exaggerated. We can see, well, that's maybe a little too exaggerated. Let's do 0.15. Yeah, cool. So now you can see that these are coming down at the very end here. But obviously we might want to adjust that, right? Based on the size they are, things like that. Another thing that you could do from this is you could also adjust it based on the curve U of the original kind of root curves here. So when we're looking at these root curves, these should have our curve U along them. And as a result, you could use that curve U. You could transfer that onto the points that would be created here. Yep, so this has a curve U. You would have to do that here, right? Because we're calculating this new curve U, but if we turn this off, each of these points should have their own curve U from the original. So you might want to rename that something here. So like here we could say something like attribute rename and then say curve U to root, maybe like root U or something like that. Then when we come down here to our resample, we'll have this root U attribute that you could use to scale along. So yeah, Matul, you were just saying, I thought of that too, but it might not work in cases where things are pinching at several places. Yeah, that's possible. Depends on how the geometry is. And honestly, if you're trying to recreate based on some sort of real embroidery, you probably won't have multiple like weird pinching points because they'll start and stop new sections of it. So it certainly won't be like won't be something where it would like pinch multiple times, down. So that would be pretty rare. You just would make new curves to be able to kind of work with those. But what we could do here now is we could use that same thing, and instead of importing based on the length, in fact, some of the issue there might actually be that we're going to have it actually go down here. So this could actually not be what we'd want, and could actually cause some issue. However, we're going to put a ramp in here to kind of play around with this, but could be a little bit of both, where you'd want to make sure that it's not scaling based on the curve U, but also then based on the scale, it could curve, you could do a few different things. But let's just do this here. Let's bring in the, instead, let's just do this. Let's bind the root U in that we just made. And what we could do is we could put that in here instead. And you would need to put a ramp on this as well. So let's do a ramp parameter. This is going to be it automatically made itself into a spline ramp, it looks like. Nope, it didn't. That is really weird. Why did it do that? Float. What did I do? Oh, I see. I have these both have the same name. Let's call this displace along thread, like that. So that should give us a better setup there. And let's grab these, turn them back into Bezier, because that actually reset our splines, which is really annoying, but that's okay. Say the value is 0. Just reset that pretty quickly. There we go. Okay, so we've got that. So that's displace along thread. And this one we'll call displace along root. This is a spline, and there we go. Cool, looking good. So that's the root U. So what we were running into there was the issue of these two being named the exact same thing, which Gizmo, yeah, it's an interesting question. Wouldn't it make sense to maybe add some clamp or a threshold? Yeah, for sure. You could definitely add clamps, thresholds, all that kind of stuff. For sure. I think what we would do is maybe add some, yeah, we can take a look at that in a second. But yeah, there's definitely some stuff you could do there as well. There's obviously going to be some inherent clamping based on the threads based on the ramps. So the ramps are going to clamp anyway. Oops, we're going to clamp anyways. So here we go. If we do something like this and like this, we will actually get our ramping here as well. So Let's see here. You can see that we can clamp this along based on where it's going. Now that is really interesting how that's working. Huh. I am surprised by that's working. Like, it's sort of working the way I would think it would, but also not. Like, I would think each of these curves would have their own root U values. So let's see here. Let's see what's happening. Definitely something weird going on there. So let me take a look at that. Let's do a value of 1 there. Ooh, that's weird. All right. There we go. That's doing something. All right. So let's see here. Why is that happening? All right. I am going to color these based on their root U. Turn this on. And you know what? Let's make way less curves so we can see this, see what's going on here. All right. Sorry, I'm just hearing my wife in the background. She's on the phone, and just hearing her exclaiming in the background. I doubt you can hear her, but it's just making me laugh. All right, I just want to see what the root U is happening here. Okay. Right. All right. I see why this is happening. So, the reason that this is happening is because these are at slightly different distances along their respective root curves, and it's interpolating between those based on these two endpoints. So like when we look at this right here and look at these two have different curve U values, and so that's getting when we're resampling it, that is now actually right here. No. Oh, right. Because it's resampling it, it's resampling it as root U. This is let's see, we'll rename curve U, confusing myself, to root U. Okay. So at this point here, this is where the root U is actually changing. So we're looking at this. They have two different root U's, and those are interpolating. And the further they are like this, these are interpolating between those two. So that's why you're getting that fall off along them. So what we should do is we should try to just get one of those, maybe just average those out. And that should work. Let's try this again. Does the labs min max average do that as well? That would be nice. Be a nice little tool to have. So if we do a point value, the attribute should be root U. Sorry, we'll move this down here. View, only view selected. So there is our root U. There's our average root U's. Oh, that's for all of them. Oh, I can just do it after here. So we'll do this. No, that won't do it either. Sorry, the logic is escaping me at the moment. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just thinking. Attribute promote. Yep. So attribute promote to primitive. Good suggestion, Zach. I think that will help us here. So we do root U, attribute promote it. Now those are, yes, but mode average. Yep. That's right. And the bummer is that if we wanted that back as a point attribute, we'd have to do two of them. I was trying to use that min max average thing to do it, but yeah, it won't. To the same class but average. I don't think that works, does it? No, that doesn't work with the same class. Yeah, there's no promotion. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. I wish that would work, but it doesn't. So we'll do primitive. And then you could, there's two different ways you could do this. You could take it back here, do primitive to point, and now it'll be back here with each of those averaged. I think that would actually be a really good thing to add to this labs tools, to say what attributes class it is, but then also like what element you would want to average it based on. So like if it's a point, it would give you the option to like, basically if it was a point, it would give you the option to go to primitive. And if not, it just wouldn't do it. But anyways, cool. That would work. That should work there. Root U, then we come down here. And now those should displace exactly the way we wanted to. I'm just going to delete these real quick. Yes, that's, it doesn't have to be. I'm just kind of making my life a little easier here. So let's do this and this here. I'm going to turn off this visualizer. Hey, Mirko. Yeah, it is a small thing. Yeah, it's definitely, there's a little bit of bugginess with them still, and this is the first release with these new curve handles. And so yeah, it'll hopefully just get better from there. But yeah, it is. I think it's really nice as well. I agree. So totally agree. I think there can be some more stuff to be played with them, but certainly is really nice. Like I think like a zero, that like some sort of a little button here to like zero them out or something would be really nice. Maybe think about going and RFEing that or something, if you're out there. But there we go. Now we've got this control along the curves. We could control this any number of ways. So yeah, there we go. We also might not want this to go down, so we could leave it like that, right? And just have it on that side as well. And control how that goes. If we take these over here and go back up to like 2500, now we've got a lot of details, a lot of curves and things like that we can use. Yeah, so it's interesting. Like this is kind of doing the kind of the main bit of information here. So let me do this, and I'm going to resort this. So let's edit the parameter interface, and we can just say thread extrusion depth and hit apply, accept. Now that'll be up here at the top, so we have a little bit better control of this. And there we go. That's starting to do something kind of interesting. Yeah, maybe like that is cool. I don't know. So in here, we have kind of these two different ways that we could do it. Obviously, we could do it based on the length of these individual primitives. So that option is in here to play with. There's also this displace along the route option. We're multiplying that by the thread depth and then feeding that into the displacement along normal. So I'll leave that in there in this file so you can take a look at it and play around with it. But yeah, hopefully this is all making sense and, you know, is logical and all that kind of stuff. All right. So yeah, I think we're starting to get somewhere with this. Why do I feel like there was an adaptive? Don't know what adaptive prune is. What is that? Yeah, no problem, Ruben. Yeah, happy to help. I don't know what this is. Adaptive prune. This must be new. Never seen that before. Or I just have never seen it before because there's a ton of nodes. Okay. It looks like we do still need a little bit. You know what actually we could do? So here we could resample the threads. We could even do it a little bit lower, something like this, to give ourselves even fewer points to deal with. We could kind of play around with this. However, this, yeah, that's what I was just going to, thank you. Yep, I totally agree. Sounds like I'm just listening to what everybody else is saying. Yeah, after the displacement makes sense. And the reason that Gizmo mentioned that and that it does make sense is that kind of no matter how far we resample this at this point, there's always going to be a little bit of this kind of shelf kind of thing going on here, where it's this really long initial sort of piece. And even if we went in here and did this down to like 1, we're still going to get kind of this really sharp last point. So now we're adding in all of these extra points here, and you just kind of keep going and going. But this last one is always kind of really stretched based on the way this is going. So now we're actually oversampling this up at the top here, and on the side we're still missing this gap. So that's why Gizmo and other people were mentioning that makes sense. So I guess you just kind of want to make sure you're getting roughly the right shape here, like so it's looking fairly accurate, like to what you want it to do. Yeah, I think let's try to render it, I guess. I mean, why not, right? I think that'll be fun. Cool. All right. Yep. So we're going to resample after it here. So let's do this. Let's resample. And this I'm actually going to do pink because that's where most of everything that we're doing is, just so there's a little color there. We'll just call this final thread resample. And obviously that resample is way too low. So let's tweak that a little bit. And let's do, oops. And let's do this as a subdivision curve. So we're going to get a little smoothing there as well. We could probably also do, or maybe just do interpolating curves. That actually might be better in this case. Oh yeah, with the Matul, you're talking about the file with the twists on it. Yeah, that's a good point. I could just grab that and throw these into it. With embroidery, it's usually not yarn, it's usually thread. So kind of the difference between thread and yarn is, or at least the way that I kind of see it, is like thread is the individual pieces, and then yarn is like you'd put multiple threads together for a yarn. And I'm pretty sure that with embroidery, you would do it with like a really, just a fine thread. Like it wouldn't look like multiple threads. But we can definitely take a look at that and see. Maybe what I'll do is first get the threads working, and then we can add in some more stuff to it. Yeah, this is looking like it's starting to do its thing here. Oh, you know what? Another thing we should do is, based on the ID of these, we should, based on the primitive number, we should probably add a little bit of random extra displacement, just so that it's not like super flat along it, so it's not so smooth. It just will be a small amount, but I think that'll help as well. Just trying to see how much detail I need to get here. That's actually probably fine. That should be good. All right, let's do that. So we actually went to a lower resampling. No, the same. We just resampled it to the same exact distance. So that's good. 295,000 points, 274. All right, so we have a little bit more, but nothing too crazy. Great. All looking good. Let's just maybe collapse that for a second. Oh yeah, the randomness. Let's do that as well here. So we have our scale, and just trying to think how we should do this, the best way to do it. Let's do a random. Let's do this based on the point number. Sorry, prim number. And then we'll do a 1D output. Okay, and then from there, we can there's a couple different ways we could do it. We could do it. So this is going to give us a value between 0 and 1. So we could only just add a little bit of scale. So that might be the best way of doing it, just adding a little bit of scale to push some of them out more. You could also do it where you could remap that 0 to 1 to -1 and 1, and then blend that into the scale. You know, you could change that obviously, but let's just leave it as it is, because this is going to give us 0 to 1, and then we can we could scale that as well, give it a random scale. So let's do that. We'll do a multiply. Promote the parameter here. We'll say random scale. So we'll say random displacement scale. And then we'll take that, and so this will scale that value. We'll let's see here. guess we could just do it with the thread depth here. Actually, what I'm going to call this is displacement depth. Cool. And we could just add these together. So let's just do that. Let's do add. So we're going to add this value into it there. I think that's at 0 already. Yep. So let's just do this here. And I'm actually going to just clean this up a little bit so that we have some nicer stuff here. So let's do a separator here and separator there. I'll just give us a little bit clearer. And then this should hopefully work. Yeah, there we go. Cool. All right. So obviously you can add a crazy amount into it. Don't want that much. So we'll just do. Yeah, we can maybe talk about that a little bit, Carlos. She, sorry. I don't know who Carlos is. Carlos to me sounds like a woman's name, so my apologies. I just am thinking in my head. So Carlos mentioned that if we're going into rendering, can we look at the edit material network name? Reading up on it, seems not all parameters can be edited. Does it depend on what's being promoted? Yeah, the edit material network is tricky. We'll take a look at that because usually with the edit material network, you're doing that based on, you're doing that based on something that's coming in from another file or whatever. So yeah, we can maybe talk about that, but I don't really have like a great, you'd basically do that with like Material X or something like that. Sorry about that, Carlos. My bad. I know someone named Carla, and so that's what I was thinking when I was reading it. And anyways, yeah, so we can maybe talk about that. It is a little bit tricky though, because it's kind of rebuilding a node network. So, or like a material network based on a file coming from disk usually. But yeah, we'll get to that in a second. All right, so let's just add a little bit of noise into this. That's looking pretty good. Let's do maybe 7.5 like that. Cool. Looking good. Great. All right, so let's do this as our output here. We'll do both. We'll do a null there as well. Now the reason actually, let me just call this, or let's say out threads. Cool. And we'll give that a little color, maybe green. Cool. All right, so we've got our threads here. They're doing their thing. Just kind of dial this in a little here. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to edit this parameter interface. Hello? What? Actually, it's right here, and I can say the float range is from 0 to 0. I don't know, 2.5 maybe. Just make that a little smaller so that this won't go as crazy. In fact, it doesn't even need to be that much, but that's all right. It's a little easier to control. And this random displacement, let's try that as well. That I can change right here. I'll do the same thing, 0.25. Then it's a little easier to grab this and not have it go quite so crazy. Cool. All right, let's just do that. Nice. Great. All right, cool. All right, so we've got this created here. We've got some threads and all that kind of stuff going on. Let's bring this over into some rendering, and we can kind of play around with this. So there's our embroidery effect. We can play with this, you know, forever and kind of get this to move around a little bit more and do its thing. Like if we wanted to add more noise into it, this is where we would do that. So we'll just make maybe a little color here so we can see that. And we'd want to tweak the amplitude here. So this would add more noise along the end to kind of make these go back and forth a little bit more here. So you can see we can obviously make these like really bad, like a really bad embroidery, or we can do, yeah, something like that probably is nice. Cool. Yeah, I mean, you could do this any number of ways, right? Like, I'm not going to go all the way through that whole logo because it's literally just like rinse and repeat type of a thing. But what you could do is a couple different things. You could take this logo, right, as an Illustrator file. You could bring it in to Houdini and load it as a file, and it'll bring it in with curves. You have to make sure it's an Illustrator 8 version, I believe, and then it'll come in as curves. And then you could obviously select the edges that you wanted to and delete those, make sure they're in, you know, going in the right direction so that they line up, you know, so that the curve U attribute is kind of going the same along both of those sections that you want. However, a lot of these embroideries, you really can't always do that because if you look here, there's actually a gap right here where that doesn't actually exist in the Illustrator file. And in fact, in the Illustrator file, this whole thing is all one big block. So like this split here and like some of these things just would, you'd actually have to go in and redraw them a little bit. So it might just be better to use like a reference image and just, you know, draw curves along it. I think that would be your best bet because, you know, really if you just draw them quickly in here and just kind of call it done, you'll sort of be in a better spot, I think, overall. And I'm pretty sure that as I did this, I kind of went through and did each section individually. You could probably create some incredibly complicated logic system that would go through and, you know, make sure that all these things are done. Yeah, it's definitely like just drawing the curves is it honestly would be probably quicker to do that than trying to build some sort of logic that would be able to handle all of these different gaps and things like that. So yeah, I think it's easier to do it yourself than going through and trying to create the logic, you know, yourself from the originals. But cool. All right, let's take this. I guess we could set the color as well. We can do that. Let's do the color here. Do this. Maybe we'll set it to be like a nice kind of navy-ish blue. Yeah, something like that. Looks cool. Great. We've got our navy blue. No, it seems like that's easy. You can see that. Sorry, I'm just looking at the... All right, so let's add a LOP network here. Make sure this is on autosave just in case anything happens here. Just call this Solaris. And we'll go inside here. Hooray, everything changes when we come in here. That makes me so happy now. All right, so let's do a... Let's do a SOP import because we're really only bringing in one thing. Let's grab our SOP path here, out threads. They're huge and weird. We should probably set the P scale on those now that I'm thinking as well. But let's first set this up. So we'll say threads. So let's make sure our scene is looking nice here. So we're going to say /geo/os. This will put our component in there. Threads, curve. That's great. I'm going to merge this into the existing active layer. The reason I'm doing that as opposed to adding the SOP layer as a new sublayer is because it's not going to worry about, it's not going to give me that error here, because what it's saying is there's no save path set, which would be right here. And I don't really want to do that. I don't need to have that. So I'm just going to load this into the current layer. If you're not familiar with layering and all that kind of stuff in Solaris, don't worry about it. It's a USD thing. Just know that this can make that little error go away and make things happy if you want. So that's good. Let's go back over here, and I'm going to add a P scale attribute here. Or sorry, why am I typing P scale? Float. Attribute adjust float will by default give me P scale with a little constant that I can make on it. Let's do something like that, maybe. See where that gets us. Yep, we've got curve thicknesses here that we're looking at. Looking like it's doing some stuff. Could probably go a little thicker than that, maybe. Not sure why it's drawing like that. That's a little weird. Well, let's leave it like that and see where that gets us. So there's our threads. Let's grab a grid as well. This is going to put it on the same thing as well. I'm going to make sure that this is in the XY plane. There we go. And we don't need it to be so big. Let's just scale it down a little bit so we've got something interesting to kind of put this against. So it's not just... it might be. We'll take a look at that. Not sure if it's rendering as ribbons, but that's a good note. Kind of looks like I'm trying to make like the like a really bad version of the Nike logo. I hope people watch this and they're like, man, this guy does not know. Like, see like a little, I hope this is like the screenshot of it and people are like, oh man, this guy has no idea how to make the Nike logo. That's really sad. Anyways, all right, I'm also going to put this grid, we'll just say background grid, and I'll put this under geo as well. So I'm going to do /geo. Those will both go in there. Now we have our background grid and our threads underneath our geo. Just trying to organize the scene a little bit. Let's make this maybe just a little bigger. Kind of play with this. Okay, there we go. That, you're right. That might be why it's showing the thickness that way, because it's rendering as ribbons. Sorry, Matul, that was delayed. Totally get what you're saying. Yes, I think that might be why it's doing that. Okay, so we've got that going. Cool, looking good. All right, let's do a material library. And this will go into materials. That's cool. Let's go inside. Let's say Karma Material Builder. So now we're going to have our Karma material here. I think what we're going to want to do is either will be the hair shader or the fur shader. Why do I think that the fur shader might be better? I don't know. Sorry, just reading what we've got going on here. Didn't I see? No, I saw cortex. Oh, there's coat. Coat's there. All right, let's try the hair one first. I don't know. Let's try this one first. So I'm just going to wire this into the surface. Get rid of that guy. There we go. And we'll call this threads. Let's do another Karma material builder. And this will just be for the background, so it can just be standard. We'll just call this, yeah, we'll just call it grid. Cool. All right, so we've got those two, grid and threads. Let's grab an assign material here and just assign those two. So we'll do 2 assignments. We'll do the background grid and give that the grid material, like so. And then we'll grab the threads. All right, cool. Let's do maybe a dome light. Be good. And I'm going to grab a texture here. Let's see here. Why do I feel like there were other HDRIs here somewhere? No, I guess not. Let's do the garage one because it's kind of like an indoor scene. We can always tweak that. You know what I'm going to do though first before we go any further, since we're rendering, I am going to try to change something here, which maybe will work. Yep. Give me 1 second here. That's an interesting question, Matul. Let me answer that in 1 second. I am just going to do this. Grab that. I'll call this. All right, ooh, interesting. Looks like I just went off of stereo. Sorry, hold on 1 second. I am just trying to do something here that apparently I might not be able to do properly. All right, let's see. Audio mixer. All right. Try this again. All right. Hopefully. Maybe that's working. No. Okay. Sorry. I just don't want this to get all freaked out when I'm rendering. Sorry. My apologies. My apologies. So. All right. I think we'll be okay now. I don't know. All right, we'll give it a shot. I didn't want to run it through my my microphone, what is it, NVIDIA broadcast thing, and have it goof up, but I think we'll be fine. We'll give it a shot. Hey, somebody, I just saw somebody subscribe to my channel. Cool. Thank you. I don't know. I didn't see who that was, and I'm not a good enough streamer to know how to even look that up now, but thanks for subscribing, whoever subscribed. Okay. Cool. So we've got the dome light there. We'll just do it maybe through CPU. Oh, weird. Hair embroidery. Very strange. Very, very strange. Okay, so your question... Oh, following. Sorry. I must mean following. Yes, sorry. I forget the difference between subscribing and following. Subscribing means you pay for something, and following something else. Anyways, yes, thank you. Matul, the difference between auto assign and material library, which is... There isn't an auto assign. There's a few different things. You can do an assign to geometry, but then you would autofill materials and then assign those. You could do that, or you could just load all your materials in here and then assign them down here. It's really not a huge difference. It's just I like to just have a material library where I build all my materials and then assign them later on in a place where I want to use it. So yeah, that's the difference. Autofill will load this in, but then those are the only ones that'll load it, will be brought into your scene graph tree down here. So I like to leave this as is, and then any new material that I build in there is going to show up in my scene graph tree. So all right, let's go back in here. Let's take a look at these threads. And I'm going to turn off the melanin, I think. Yep, that's good. The base color is working as well. Does this work too? Thickness scale? Nope. Not sure what. Oh, I see. That changes how the hair is scattering it, right? With the melanin and everything. Cool. Okay, so let's take, let's do this. So our thread curves here. Let's just pull this up for a second. We can take a look at this. We should have a display color here for all of them, so that's good. So we've got our prim var. So let's do this. I think there's a color. Geometry color. This should read the color, so let's do this. There we go. I'm going to turn off the highlighting so we don't see that anymore. Cool. So that's bringing in the base color from the geometry. Let's just rotate this dome light around a little bit. I just want to see if we can't rotate this around, get a little bit of a different color highlight kind of thing going on here. Yeah, I think I like that better. And I'm just going to draw a render region here. Maybe like so. And then let's play around with some of these values in our material library. So we have our threads. Let's up the... So our base color is being driven by this here, so that's all good. Let's go to specular here. Could turn down the roughness, and that's going to give us a really shiny That's an interesting question. Yes, there would probably be a case for inputs, but I don't know what it would be, actually. Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like it would be something, but I'm not sure what it would be. Yeah, I mean, I usually just leave it, but yes, you don't use it a lot. Let's just put it that way. Probably unless you're in a really intense like pipeline in some sort of in some sort of like production workflow, you probably won't have inputs coming into your shaders, I don't think, but maybe. Inputs, you can define those within a shader though. I can show that real quick. Let me do this first and then I'll show you how that could be useful. So let's just say I can think of an example here in a second. All right, so let's do this. Let's maybe add a code on top of it. That actually might look a bit better. Advanced roughness. Oh, interesting. Advanced. No, it'll be fine. Actually, that's looking pretty darn nice, if I do say so myself. Does look a little funky with these like highlight colors, but I'm guessing that if you're far enough away from it, let me turn off the render region. I'll clear that. Yeah. Looks kind of cool. Maybe a little bit of weirdness there. Wonder if changing the IOR would help us there a little, maybe. Yeah, I think that actually would. I think you would probably want to change the IOR with this because you're getting some refraction inside of it, and I don't think that that's exactly what you'd want because, like, when it's here, you get this, like, weird darkness. When it's over here, kind of getting that filled in a bit more, and that seems to make more sense. The other thing you might want to do is add in some of this diffuse color as well, maybe, and maybe that would make sense. Diffuse color. Maybe it would be a mix of the two. Yeah, because like that's like fully diffuse. It's like maybe it's somewhere in there that's a bit more interesting. I don't know. Just thinking about it. Yeah, maybe this is like 0.5 for the diffuse, maybe somewhere in there, 6. And then the rest is specular. Could be kind of cool. I don't know, something like that. Again, I'm not a rendering specialist. But anyways, so let's say instead of this, you wanted to do something where you had, let's do this. Let's do a parameter. So this is going to seem a little bit weird and you might not normally think of this, but let's do a color and we'll do this base color, diffuse color. Here's this. And we'll say the default, sure, it could be black. That's fine. So, oops. Okay. Clear render region, go away. Thank you. So what this is going to do is something really interesting. So we can call this, I don't know. Maybe we'll call that thread color. So by default, this is black, right? And this will be our thread shader. right? And if we come up here, do this. Okay, we've got our thread shader, right? So, that's an interesting question, Kiki. I think there's definitely some advantages. I've heard people say that it's really good with volumes and some things like that. The hair is pretty quick, as you can tell. This is the CPU render and it's flying pretty quick. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some advantages. I actually think that just using Solaris is really nice for rendering in general. Like, it's just really cool. But you know, there's certainly there's certainly different there could be some advantages that, I mean, I haven't delved into all of them really deeply or anything like that, but I really love working in Solaris in general. So I think as long as you're working there, whether you're using Redshift or Karma or whatever, Arnold or RenderMan, I think you're going to be getting a lot of really nice little workflow enhancements versus doing stuff at object level. I think we're so used to doing things at object level that that feels like the right thing. Like, it feels just the Houdini thing, right? Quote unquote. But really, I think the more you get used to working in Solaris, it starts to really feel nice, to be honest. But, you know, your mileage may vary, but I wouldn't say that there's any advantages right now because Karma is still so new and Redshift has been around for how many years now? However, I think in coming releases and as we're moving forward, they're going to be so similar that really just the speed and ability to not have to worry about any like hacky things to, you know, anything to like get attributes over and make sure it knows about volumes and all that stuff. I think you should run into less and less in that as you go. So anyways, that's just my thoughts. But all right, let's do something cool here that I think will be interesting to see. So this is our thread shader. And what I'm going to do is we're going to duplicate this geometry a couple times. So let's do that. So let's do a duplicate. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take our source geo here, and we're going to translate this over. Which direction are we going in? We're going in what? That is really weird. What is happening there? Why is it doing that? I'm just going to go back to Houdini GL, make sure I'm understanding what the heck is going on here. Hey, Terry, welcome to the stream. Hello, hello. It's really weird. I don't know why it's doing that. Well, whatever. That's cool. That's working. Pivot transform. That's must be what's going on here. Why was that? Oh, because I think that was picking up on this last dome light edit. So that's why. All right, there we go. Like, this makes no sense. Why is it doing that? All right, so there's our 3 instances. We have let's say, well, instead of doing source name, we'll do scene, maybe scene copy 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, so there we go. We've got our scene copies here, and that's doing its thing. And we can do a reference. That should be good. All good. Okay, cool. Looking good. So we have our duplicated scenes here. So we've got these 3 different things. And what if we wanted to take this thread shader and make 3 different like thread colors here or whatever? Well, what we could do, and in this case, let's say our thread shader was made by an artist at some other point, and we don't have the network here, and we were just referencing this in. This was coming from disk. Well, what you can do here and what you can see is that this thread shader has an input now, this thread color, right? And so what we can do is we can do edit material properties, and we can say specialize, and we're going to call this create our parameters here. Oh, sorry. I need to say which one it is. So our thread shader is going to be the one we're going to use. We're going to create our parameters. We're going to specialize it. And then this we can say, let's call this something like blue. We'll say this is going to be yellow thread, right? So now this yellow thread is actually going to be a reference of this thread shader. So it's actually referencing this and making kind of this instanced kind of duplicate of it. So this is going to be a little interesting. Hopefully we'll be able to do this. So, all right, so we'll set or create this. We'll make this yellow. And now we have our yellow thread shader. We can, here, instead of doing this, we could do another assign material down here and assign this in to one of these. So we could say I think this should work. Yep, sure does. And there we go. Now we have our yellow thread. And you might say, well, that seems goofy. Why are we doing this way, right? This is silly. This is dumb. What are we doing this? What's the point? Well, let's maybe do this a couple more times and we'll see the interesting nature of this. So let's call this one pink thread. We'll set this one to be pink. And we'll set another one here. Oops. What did I do? You broke it. And then let's do another one here that's, I don't know what color. Green. We'll say green thread. And so the beauty of this is that I'm still using the same primitive and I'm doing this specialization of it. And basically what that's doing is creating these, making these sort of duplicated references, and you'll see in a second why that's really helpful. So let's do this. Let's do 2 more. We'll do scene copy 1 with the threads and the scene copy 2 with the threads, and we'll grab the materials from this. So let's do pink here in the middle, and we'll do green at the end. Now, just remember that before all of this, when we duplicated it, these all have the same shader in them. And in fact, I'm going to make these just a little bit closer so we can see them kind of all right next to each other, like that maybe. Cool. I think that'll be good. Maybe we'll make them just a little closer. So they're kind of all right on top of each other like that. Great. All right. So we've got all of these different shaders, right? And if we were to go in here into our thread shader, right, and change, let's just say our diffuse, right? We turn this all the way off, right? And now it's just super shiny. Well, in a normal situation, if you were taking these shaders and just like making new duplicates or copies of them or whatever, you would then have to do, like, if you were taking this and saying, okay, we've got our green shader, and then we're going to come down here and do our, our blue thread shader, and then a yellow thread shader and all that stuff, all the way down. Well, then you'd have to change all of those, right? Here we have this Uber shader, and this could be made by, someone in modeling or whatever on your team. You could save this to disk with this input. This does not have to be live on this person's, say I'm like a layout person. This could all be done up here by someone else, right? All of this stuff. And then down here, I'm going to say, okay, I want this to be the yellow thread, the pink thread, and the green thread. This is specializing, basically making special references of this original thread shader, making copies of them. And now when we look at them, those are all going to be picking up on that change that we make. So any changes that we make in here, so say we change this thread shader to have all diffuse, these are all going to pick up on that. The only thing that's changing is that one input, this thread color that we're giving it. So this is a really fun little thing that I've learned how to make these kind of Uber shaders in here. And I do a lot of Solaris stuff, or have done a lot of Solaris stuff over the past year and a half. So it's kind of fun to be able to sprinkle it in here. It's not always the most user-friendly stuff because it's very USD-ish. But if you're curious about sort of what's going on here, I would take a look at my USD courses on the Side Effects website. They're under the tutorial section. It's like USD with Solaris. So if you're curious about what the heck's going on here. But anyways, that is just kind of a fun little thing that you can do. And I've wanted to talk about that before, and there it is. So that's your little specialize section there. So that's kind of fun. And obviously on any of these, you can change the color, and it's going to go in and make those adjustments. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Anyways, great. Well, I think we're going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon. Another thing I should mention is that when I make these copies here, these are actually making references. So this isn't fully copying everything that's underneath here. This is just, referencing to this original geometry and hiding the stuff, or deactivating the stuff that was underneath Geo originally. So it's basically just making a reference to that in our scene. So yeah, that's what's going on there. And what you might want to do is what you could do is do separate source and destination here. And then, you might say maybe layout, something like that. Then you get those there and you put those all underneath the layout tab where you duplicate things. Now these assign materials would have to change, but that's fairly easy to do. You could just change those real quick. In fact, we could just say /layout. Just copy that down the chain here. We should be back in business. So that might make a little bit more sense to see it like that, where they're all these scene copies are underneath there. You could also call it a geo, whatever. You can name it whatever you want to. I just named it scene copy just because whatever. But hopefully that's something interesting to see. Hopefully the thread stuff makes sense and we're good with it. Hopefully that's all making some, logical sense. I think it's a fun little setup to make this embroidery thing and have these, kind of ramped parameters. There's obviously a lot more you could do with this, and you could continue to kind of play around with it and make it. Yeah, of course. Thanks, KG. That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, these are some of the sort of procedural modeling techniques that you use, for a number of different processes, in order to, make these things work. So, yeah, it's there's a lot of different techniques that you can use, and kind of these are all things that I use all the time personally. If I'm doing a project or whatever, like those are all processes that are pretty common. So Solaris is fun. I love Solaris personally. I know some people think it's the devil or crazy or whatever, but I really enjoy it. I think it's fun. And so I think that's it. If anybody has any questions before we wrap up, I'd be happy to, kind of see whatever anybody's thinking. But otherwise, we're going to start winding down here, because it's been a couple hours for me, and I'm getting ready to call it an evening and stop talking. All right. Well, I think that's going to kind of, be where we end this evening. Thank you, everybody, for joining, as always. It's always nice to have lots of comments and questions in the chat. Hopefully this was informative for you. This setup will be on the files that I've posted on the Discord. So if you want access to this file, join up with Houdini Hangout on Discord. You can get a link to the invite through houdinihangout.com. And there's lots of cool stuff there. Make suggestions for future streams. That was where I found this, because I was kind of looking through today and seeing what I was going to do. And that popped up, and I was like, hey, I've been meaning to do this for a while. So when is the Rust stream? I guess I shouldn't be telling everybody that I'm playing video games. No Rust streams for me. That's when I get to not talk to anyone. My buddy and I have been playing Rust a bit. I've been playing a bit more games on PC. Oh, one more thing before we go. I do have an announcement that I wanted to make, and I'm going to load up another file here real quick. I'm just going to save this one and open one of my files that I made before here. Tests. All right. So I'm going to be doing a little stream that's going to be talking about some rigging stuff. And listen, I'm not, a rigging professional or anything like that by any means. But what I'm going to be doing is looking at how to rig some mechanical robot stuff. And I have an Igor from Polymarvels online. Check out his stuff on YouTube, I believe. I'll have more information on his socials and things like that. But he contacted me and was like, hey, would you like to kind of do a little collaboration type thing? And I said, sure, I would love to do that. That would be cool. And so we're going to do a little collaboration together, and it's going to feature this little guy. So we have this little robot here that is going to be rigged, and I'm in the process of still doing it. I haven't done all the rigging yet. I've just kind of played around with it a little bit, but this is going to be, rigged together, and we're going to be able to move him and do some different stuff with that. I got to adjust some of the joints and things like that. I just started playing with it and just got a few things working. And so it was sort of working on a basic level. So we'll call it good. We're not going to be going into any of the crazy new Apex rigging stuff that you've seen maybe people talking about online. That's still very, very, very new. And I haven't wrapped my head around that fully, but this will be a little guy that we're going to play around with. I'm going to I think we're going to be doing, I think I'm going to do this in the new year after the, like kind of, I take a little Christmas break here, just because everybody will be out for the holidays and things like that. I don't want this to get lost in the noise of that. So in the new year, we're going to do a little, maybe a couple streams based on this. We'll look and see kind of how complicated everything gets. But that's a fun little announcement. Hopefully you'll be looking forward to in the coming year. And huge thanks to Igor at Poly Marvels for setting this guy up and making him. He had made him already, but he was like, hey, do you want to do this? And he even put my little badge on here, which is cool. I was very excited about that. It's fun. But I'll have more information about him and his stream and all that kind of stuff, or his social links and all that stuff. But I'm going to be working on this little guy and getting some setups going, and then we'll kind of walk through, the full step-by-step kind of rigging of something rigid like this. So should be really fun. And that'll be something to look forward to, like I said, in the new year. So that will be the end of the stream for this week. Thank you guys so much for joining, for all the questions. Please always feel free to reach out in the Discord. And if you have questions or thoughts or anything like that, I'll do my best to answer them. A lot of other people have been jumping in and answering things as well. So certainly want to give space for that, because one of the ways you learn is by helping others as well. So, and that's kind of how I've learned along the way. So, yeah, hopefully I'll see you there, and have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.